Greetings, my friends. Ben here. This is not my regular kind of video, but I'm very motivated right now, and I am going to show you how to make an outdoor table for you and your family to hang around on and neglect and draw with crayons and stuff. You'll ruin it, but it's still worth making because the price of outdoor furniture at the moment is just ridiculous. For a table that's, $1,200 long or something and $600 or $700 wide, you're probably looking at between, $500 and $800. That's crazy talk. And it's built out of rubber hatch material, which just dies in the water. So we're going to build this one out of straight up treated pine. It's going to cost you about $160 in timber, but it's going to be up to 2.4 meters long, and it could be up to 1,200 wide if you want it to be. It's a big table. It's strong, and the only things you need to build this thing are a saw of any kind. You can use a handsaw. It'll take you forever. You can even get the guys at Bunnings to cut it for you if you know what you want. A saw and a couple of drills. And that's pretty much it. Anything else I do on top is because I want it to look just a little bit schmancy. But this is all stuff you can do at home. Don't spend a fortune on outdoor furniture. It's crazy. And don't use pallets. Never. Because you think it's going to look like this. But in reality, it looks like this. They take so much work. Just don't use pallets. It shits me to tears. Oh, can you please make me I want a really nice pallet table. Fuck off. I'm not even remotely interested. You don't really want it. It's internet. It's the worst. Anyway, let's get this thing started. I'm going to do this in 3 or 4 parts. Haven't decided yet, but we'll get it happening. You can do this, and you should. Save you a ton of money. Good times, everyone. Before we get started, I just want to say that Bunnings have nothing to do with this video. I didn't approach them. I didn't want to, but I'm going to say their name a bit. I'm pretty sure they've been mortified that I'm even saying it now due to my very limited timber skills. But they got cheap timber and cheap stuff, and the stuff's pretty nice, so let's move on. First things first, decide how long you want your table. The average table is about 1,500 to 1,700 long and about 700 wide. But we're going to go a bit bigger, well, because you can, and it's going to cost you the same money no matter what you do. So I'm using 70-35 treated pine. You can use 70-45 treated pine. Doesn't really matter. They come in 3 meter and 2.4 meter lengths. So I just grabbed I grabbed 3 2.4s. So mine will be 2.4 long and just over 1 meter wide. So that'll be about 8 people you'll be able to sit at this table comfortably. So measure up, and remember, handy hint, measure twice, cut once. I have made so many mistakes by not doing that. Don't let my problems become yours. It's a good habit to have. So measure up and start cutting up. I'm going to use the drop saw because I got one. If you don't use it, if you don't have one, just use whatever saw you've got. It doesn't really matter. Now, once you cut your timber, lay it all on the ground. Make sure that your ends are on the outside and not on the inside. Because if you have them on the inside, then whatever support you put in the middle, it's just going to look like a ladder, and it's just not that bloody strong. So make sure your ends are on the outsides and your sides are on the inside. That essentially is your frame ready to go. If you really wanted to, you could just screw it together right now, and that'll be the frame finished. But since I want to take a step further, well, that's just what I'm going to do. Now I'm going to take this timber and I'm going to whack it in the timber thicknesser. If you don't know what that is, totally fine. If you haven't got one, don't worry about it. Just sand your timber down so it's nice and smooth. I'm just doing it because I'm an asshole. So all you got to do is take it, put it in one end, and what it's going to do is it's just going to rip a nice clean edge and get rid of that rough stuff that's on the timber from the factory. And you do it to one side, flip it over and do the other. You can also do this with a plane if you want, but I'm just not that skilled and I couldn't be fucked. So thicknesser it is. Do the sides and then do the tops and bottoms, and this is why we do it, so it looks nice and clean. Shithouse on the right, nice and clean on the left. And now that I've got my timber the way I want it to be, I'm going to whack it on top of my table, and I'm going to use a couple of clamps to get it nice and flat. Now I trust my bench, it is flat. Well, on the edges it's flat, it's actually bowed a little bit in the middle, but that's a tomorrow problem, not a right now issue. So use a couple of clamps, get it as flat as you can. I use a hammer and just kind of tap it hard up against itself. And then all it is a couple of 65mm screws and just whack them through. Now, on that, I use these Kennesaunk square drive screws. Now, I used to use Phillip head ones, but honestly, the bits last a lot longer with square. and they grip a lot better, so you don't just chew the bloody screws up all the time. And of course we're using treated pine screws because we're using treated pine. That's pretty straightforward, isn't it? Once you've got everything lined up the way you want it to be, go ahead, don't ever forget to pre-drill. Pre-drilling's important, otherwise you'll split your timber. So pre-drill, whack the screws in there, do it all the way around. Remember, as I said before, keep the ends on the outside. Do not put them on the inside because we've got to brace it later on and you'll thank me for it. So once that's all done, mate, your frame's good to go. That's very much it. And the last thing we're going to do here is the legs. Now for the legs, we're going to use 90 by 90 treated pine posts. These are essentially for fence posts and stuff like that, but you know what? It doesn't matter. So cut them to 700. Use the first one you cut as a reference for the rest. So measure it, cut it, put it up against it, run your fingers over the edges to see if it's nice and smooth. If it needs a little bit of shimming, stick it against the blade of your saw, lift up the blade and then just drop it back down and you'll get half a blade length every time. So that's a handy hint. And then we move on to, I guess, putting it together. Well, we're not quite there yet, but we are very close. If you wanted to, you could nearly call this table done. If you didn't want to put in any more money or effort, just screw the legs in as it is. Well, when it's laid down flat, of course. Screw the legs in and turn it over and put whatever you want on the top. It doesn't really matter. We're just going to use decking at the end of this, but if you wanted to just throw it on the top now, square it up, that's your table done. But since that's not what I want to do, and I do want to make it as pretty as I can, this is going to be the end of this video. But the next video we're going to tackle putting the top on. We're going to machine the legs, make them look pretty. It's going to be amazing. It's probably not going to be amazing. It's probably going to be pretty rubbish. Anyway, look, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you've got any questions, you can jam up your clacker because I'm not really interested. All right, see you next time.
Got a little bit of a cheeky joke going with the ladies in the staff room, that people come here for the snags, but they stay for the cheap plasterboard.